G'day, guys. Hope you're all doing well. It is your friendly neighborhood coach. I need a new line. I keep going down Spider-Man route. Once you kind of on that, you kind of just stick to it. It's like muscle memory. G'day. It is all things talking Broken Realms. We are focusing on the key character in this book. It is Morathi. We are talking Daughters of Khaine, and I have probably the most prolific Daughters of Khaine player that I know. He not only is competitive, not only is he someone who just explores places outside of Hagnar, it is a man who's completely dedicated to the Daughters of Khaine. It is StrengthHammer himself, Chuck Moore. G'day, how are you, Chuck?
I'm good. Although I thought we were talking about Tayrathi, not Marathi. I might have.
Well, it's Brit Rathi now, so it's
right.
I've joined the cult now. So for anyone who doesn't know, Chuck is an absolute megastar when it comes to Taylor Swift. Actually, slides into her DMs. Actually, she slides into his DMs. This guy is so committed to Morathi that this is actually Chuck.
I love it.
As if you weren't getting, as if I was going to not bring that up. So Chuck is a absolute Daughters of Khaine fanatic. He is the high oracle of all things Daughters of Khaine. So I couldn't think of a better person to talk about this book. And when I looked at Broken Realms and Morathi, and I think for as a Daughters of Khaine, I guess opponent, I've recently picked up this this army. It's going to be my armies on parade for 2021, and for all my experience playing up against Daughters of Khaine, my opponents have just run Witch Elves, Sisters of Slaughter, Morathi, Hag Queen, Cauldron. There's been a whole block of about 5 to 6 units that they would always run. And the snakes are something that hasn't really been touched. And because of Shadow and Pain, because of Broken Realms Morathi, there's a whole new way of playing this book. Morathi itself has changed. And I thought I would be really curious to learn from your experiences. I know you've been playing a bunch of games. I know you've had a whole bunch of experience to say, how has Daughters of Khaine evolved with the new temple, with the new war scrolls? We have a new model. We have a new character. There's a lot going on. Should I just be building 3 blocks or 4 blocks as a Witch Elves, or is there a new sister to the party? So Chuck, StrengthHammer, anything you want to say before we get straight into these rules?
Yeah, I know. Like you said, I mostly play Kraith. I will admit that that's my favorite temple to play. But I have played every temple, including Xainthar Kai. I actually got my first official game in with it last night against the clubmate Ben. Probably why you've seen lots of Witch Elf spam is originally when Daughters came out, I got to write one of the early articles for it on the Warcom website. And I said take 90 Witch Elves because it was good. And it has proven to be good. But there's definitely a lot more legs and snakes now than ever before. I'll put it that way.
There's some really cool list tech that I've been noticing because, in the past it was a matter of, do I run Witch Elves? Do I run Sisters of Slaughter? How do I take advantage of the 6-inch pile-in? There was these little trick where, you take Morathi and Morathi would transport. If you had if you had Calibron, you would then use the teleport. Like there was...
I just want to be shot. Yep.
Yeah, like Daughters of Khaine had this play style that they always used. But I'm not seeing or I'm not hearing as much of that. People are now looking at the book a little bit differently, which I think I'm really excited about and something that I want to unpack with you in this particular episode. So before I get into that, and the reference to Taylor Swift, by the way, is that Chuck and I did have a pop star battle at Adepticon. It was Britney versus Taylor Swift. I'm wearing my Britney shirt. Britney did win that battle, and I've now joined the cult of Daughters of Khaine, and I'm going to bring Britney to the house because she is a goddess.
Yeah, I'm excited, too, to see your Armies of Parade board because you do stunning work. I'm not sure if anyone hasn't seen your stuff yet, but I can't wait to see your Daughters of Khaine Armies of Parade.
I have a good idea already. I've started building it. That's crazy. Daughters of Khaine, I've literally picked up this army 2 weeks ago. I already have 2,000 points as of this Sunday, so 2 days from now. And I already started my display board. So
that's great. That's great.
I'm pretty excited. But before I get into it, and g'day to everyone as well who's either joining from the podcast, who's joining live. It's awesome to see you guys all here. Talk to me about the strength of the army. talk to me about why would I start a Daughters of Khaine army, or what's kept you in this army for so long? I know you've kind of deviated a little bit to Slaanesh, and we're bringing you back.
Yeah.
But what drew you to Daughters, and what are they good at?
I mean, really, the initial draw of Daughters was actually Marathi herself, just the character and that little teaser video they did, and just like the voiceover work. I was like, okay, I was kind of leaning towards it. I was like, okay, then I just went all in, fell in love with it. And then when I played the army, it is just fun. As you play, you get stronger. It kind of plays the way you think Khorne should play, because Khorne plays definitely more of the martial prowess going on, which I do have a Khorne army, and I'm not very good with it. But this plays like you want to run forward, you want to be screaming bloody murder, and you want to tear opponents up. Doesn't mean you're not going to take models off. I take models off in droves, but I'm also taking your opponent's models off. You can get very tactical based upon what temple you take. Like you take Calibron, you can get very tactical. Hagnar, obviously, you're going to be very defensive. Kraith, that I like to play, like you're definitely like rolling the dice on that one. But and not to mention, just having that flat 6-up save, fanatical face save for the army wide, it's just so satisfying. I mean, yeah, sure, like you have a 5-up or 6-up armor, and then you have a 6-up after save. But still, it's just nice rolling dice over and over again. Oh, and that's the other thing. If you take blocks of Witch Elves or Sisters of Slaughter, you are rolling buckets of dice, and it is a satisfying feeling, and you get rerolls everywhere.
That's amazing. And I think I got a little bit tired of Daughters at one point, because it just became, maybe it was just my opponents. I'm looking at you, Liam, who would just run Witch Elf spam. And I'm always like, and I think when I played you at Adepticon and you showed a different way of playing, like it wasn't just Hagnar with a whole bunch of saves. You explored the book a little bit differently. I have played a little bit of Calibron, and I'll be building a Calibron list. And it's awesome to see the chat, by the way. Some very meta people who are actually literally building Daughters of Khaine models while they're watching this stream. So that's super
great.
meta. That's super meta.
That's awesome.
And I recently learned that I shouldn't glue the heads and the hair onto the bodies of my Witch Elves. I should separate them, and it makes painting easier. I wish I knew that 10 Witch Elves ago.
I don't know. To me, it doesn't bother me. I don't know. I understand why people do it, but you can get away without it. I guess it just depends on what you're doing with the hair. I just do a flat, not flat, but I just do like a solid color. But if you're doing that layering from one color into another, yes, then definitely separate it.
Well, I'm inspired by the Drow Elves, so I'm going to go with Dungeons and Dragons again. My Gargants were very Dungeons and Dragon Frost Giant. I'm now going to the Dark Elf Drow Grey Skin. So
there you go.
Trying to find that without looking like stone is a challenge, but getting into this book, and I'm very keen to understand, because first off, we do get this book, this Broken Realms book. Marathi's got a whole bunch of rules, but the thing about this is that Broken Realms isn't the only place as a Daughters of Khaine player as at currently present. Don't at me, it's December 2020, something may change, but we got a whole bunch of rule updates. You got some new war scrolls in this particular book. You got some new war scrolls in that box, Shadow and Pain. So you did get a new Medusa character. You did get some updated war scrolls with the snakes. And we've recently, as of recording, literally getting that Warcry warband, the Shadow Stalkers coming as well. So there's a whole bunch of Daughters of Khaine stuff around. But before I get into that, I want to understand, when I pick up my generic battle tome, the original OG, maybe 3 years ago battle tome, and I'm looking at my allegiance abilities, has it changed? Do I still get these rules, or does the way that I use these allegiance abilities change if I've been using like Witch Elves, or I bring these rules into play?
What I will say too, with Daughters of Khaine, these rules, now they're kind of all over the place right now, just partially because of the release structure, I think, but like the rules have been pretty much evergreen. Daughters of Khaine have had the slightest of touches for any sort of FAQs. The biggest FAQ was, how do we deal with Marathi's wounds characteristics if it's not during the round, which now she has a new war scroll that fixed that up anyway. So really, I guess just to lay it out there. So to get the rules for everything Daughters of Khaine, you need the basic rule book, or their battle tome, sorry, the Marathi Broken Realms book. There is war scroll cards within the Shadow and Pain box set. And then also, if you go to the Shadow Stalkers box on the GW website, that's where you can find the rules via PDF or on the Warcom website. So this is the most work we've ever had to do. Yeah.
The app has updated as well, so your rules are in the app.
They are, except for the Shadow Stalkers. They are still not in the app. So, but yeah, these rules have been evergreen. Like these rules are written in such a way that they're just always going to be effective, and I love that. So Fanatical Faith, you have that 6-up after save to negate wounds. That's great. It's always there. It's always a bonus. I love it. The Blood Rights table, I guess we can dive a little bit more into that. How that
it might be just be quick worth calling out as well that depending on how focused you've been on your General's Handbook 2020, it's probably worth noticing that people like Hagnar, for example, I remember when I used to play a lot of Hagnar opponents, they would have like a stacking of a additional save, a damage prevention, invulnerable, whatever you want to call it. So know that you only get one now as of the General's Handbook 2020. So with Fanatical Faith and or any other stacking, you choose one. Armor save, then one, whatever your best is.
Yep, good call out. Yeah.
Just in case you missed it, because we did see a time where Hagnar was like, what, armor save, 5-up, 6-up, 6-up, or 5-up, Shrine and Hagnar, and
it was very not fun to play or play against in my mind. I played it for one event. I took it to a Ren 4 event over to the sister club, Ren 4 in my area. And I lost one game, Scorched Earth, because I misplayed the objectives. So I lost that game for myself. And then I won every other game, and I was bored to tears with Hagnar. So I never touched it again.
I've had a lot more fun against Calibron and Kraith than certainly Liam, your Hagnar. I'm just taking the piss out of Liam. I love Liam. But you've also got the Blood Rights table. So your friendly Daughters of Khaine are going to get a bunch of abilities depending on which battle round. So kind of like Deepkin, kind of like some of the other, I think the old Beastclaw Raiders had a table like this. But you've got a whole bunch of stuff here. You've got, you can re-roll run rolls of 1. You can re-roll dice rolls of 1, making a charge. You can re-roll ones. The Avatar of Khaine is always animated. You can re-roll wound rolls of 1. And these stack as well, right? That you just continue to accumulate them, or do they change between rounds?
Nope. They just keep stacking on top of each other. So, I mean, looking at the round 1, you get Quickening Bloodlust, reroll run rolls of 1, which is great because your Witch Elves and Sister Slaughter can run and charge. And now, actually, with the new Medusa Iron Scale, she has a command ability that allows a unit with a Medusa unit within 12 inches to also run and charge, and I believe run and shoot as well.
Yeah, I think it might be run and shoot.
Yeah. Yep, run and shoot and or charge. Okay, so it is useful. It kind of depends on how you're going to play your army. Whether you're like, I play hyper aggressive. I'm getting in turn 1, so reroll rolls of 1 is really nice. Now, if you do want to hang back, you're still going to have a great ability come turn 2, where you'll get to reroll the ones to run and reroll the ones to charge. So you're going to make it in turn 2 if that's what you want to do. But you can fairly regularly make it in turn 1 already, no matter what kind of army you're playing now. Turn 3 is where it really turns on for every single Daughters of Khaine army. Not because the Avatar of Khaine becomes active.
Are you sure? That's pretty OP, man. That and Lotan from IDK are probably the most broken war scrolls going around right now.
Well, I will say this. Most of the time, whenever I'm going to fail a prayer and take a wound on my Hag Queens or Slaughter Queens, it's because I'm trying to activate the Avatar turn 1 just for kicks.
By the way, that was Australian sarcasm, by the way. The Avatar is something where I wouldn't be building around at the moment. But so maybe before I get into the new temple, because one of the cool things about Broken Realms Morathi is we have a new temple. So we've mentioned some of the temples already. We've mentioned Hagnar, Calibron, Kraith. I'm sure there's others that I haven't played against yet. Drakey Ganeth. I don't really play against Drakey Ganeth. No one's really done that to me yet.
It's a really fun one. It's a retreat and charge. It's a really like hit and run style thing. It's kind of like the old Dark Elf style of play, I believe. I say it's been over a year since I played that one, but yeah.
But we've got those 4 in the battle tome, and in Broken Realms, we've now unlocked a new temple. So before I get into that particular temple, I wanted to just get your observations now that you've read Broken Realms Morathi. The way that you look at your blood rights and your fanatical faith, has that changed since you've gotten this book, or is it very similar to how it used to be in your builds? Like, what's your thinking here?
It really does come down to the turns 1 and 2 slightly different. So if I'm running a more snake heavy army, I'm probably going to not be hyper aggressive and charge in right away. Snakes, from what I've experienced of them playing some a handful of games with them in the past couple months, are very late game. They're going to survive. They're going to outkill, and or they might get killed, but you're not gonna alpha strike and just take over the board. You're gonna have to be strategic with it. So you might take advantage of that reroll ones to run if you're trying to move to a specific objective and set up your plays. The charge, not so much, unless like you're probably going to be within charge range. But turn 3 onward, any army would love to have reroll ones to hit across the army, and then turn 4 reroll wound rolls of 1 to hit. So really the 1 and 2 might change based upon how hyper aggressive you want to be. If you're doing snakes, you're probably not going to be as hyper aggressive as if you're doing a bunch of witch elves and sisters slaughter. So all in all, marginal change in thinking, but like I said, once it goes turn 3, you better be in combat and taking advantage of all the rules you have.
And I've always played against Daughters of Khaine armies that have always been hyper aggressive, building for a turn 1 charge, or at least preparing that you are going to go for the double turn from turn 1 into turn 2 and go for that charge. So it's always been the late game play for me has always been probably the Canary, having something late game to maybe go steal objectives or, reposition across the table. But it always seemed to me Daughters of Khaine was just run up the table, get into combat as quick as possible, keep within your buffs and your synergies, obviously, but just flood the board, tie up your opponent, deny them from scoring objectives while you've got some durable or some killy or some very fast models. So that's always been my experience and observation from Daughters.
Yeah, it's very much the way I've been seeing it. If I'm running a heavy witch elf, like I guess 25 mil base type scheme, witch elf, sister slaughter, however you want to parse them out, I'm probably not going to be stressing too much about magic. I'll probably bring Morathi now for new war scroll, but just if I got Mind Razor, but I might just put Mind Razor on the Shadow Queen now instead of witch elf unit. It really depends on the situation, but I'm going to go prayer heavy if I'm going to be dealing with lots of witch elves and sisters of slaughter, because I want that hag queen there to give them the witch brew for the no battle shock and and reroll their wound rolls. So I might as well focus on the prayers there. And I've played probably the past couple of years where I wouldn't have a caster. My opponents would be, okay, I got my casting phase. I'm like, cool, I got this spell and this spell with my slaughter queen maybe. But I just didn't care. It's like, go ahead and whatever you need to do. I'll do my saves and then I'll do my prayers, and then you don't get to interact with my hero phase either. And then I'm buffed up and I get to go in because you can't stop prayers. But with the snakes,
that's the interesting thing about prayers, right? Is that there is no way really to deny a prayer. So if you can get that roll down, there's no way of stopping you from applying X prayer onto your opponent, or your own models.
Right, but in contrast with the snake lists that I've been trying out, I'm not taking. I mean, you could take a hag queen. You could pass off the witch brew to them. That it would benefit them, but I'm not as worried about it right now. Like, I mean, there's 5 to 10 models, like pretty high bravery. You're gonna have a command point handy most likely. So, I don't know if it's as needed to have that battle shock community. The rerolled wounds is fantastic. That's always going to be fantastic. But I'm going more magic here because I have to take a Bloodrock Medusa as my general to unlock the Blood Sisters as battle line. So at that point, okay, I'm also going to take Morathi. I'm magic heavy. I don't really have any prayers. Maybe if I have points, I'll take one in. But the list I just tried recently, I had 100 points left, but I took Shadow Stalkers instead for some movement as opposed to taking an extra hero. So.
And then the Shadow Stalkers are a new unit that I think we haven't quite worked out yet. I know some people are very passionate and maybe just running small little units of 9. Some people have talked about using them in a block of 18 and just the damage or the anvil that they can possibly be as 18 models. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of come into the mix. And I know you've been playing with it, and we'll get to your list very soon. I think the chat is very sharp. My chat is very sharp, and they're already starting to talk about snakes. And I think this particular episode we're going to mostly focus on snakes. And I think the next episode, Chuck and I will revisit this maybe in a couple of weeks, and we'll talk about the witch elf builds because there's a lot to unpack with the snakes and a lot to like. One D critical had mentioned, the 2d6 run on top of the charge from the iron scales. There's a very aggressive snake build right now. So I think as we start looking at this, let's talk snakes. And what better way to talk snakes is with the new Cobra Kai battalion. Strike first, strike hard, no mercy. And that is how do you actually pronounce this? Because I just keep calling it Cobra Kai.
I call it Zainthar because
Cobra Kai.
I'm on record. I'm probably the only person that doesn't care about the Cobra Kai thing. The new show didn't really hit for me, so I'm just like, okay.
we all know the Cobra Kai's were the good guys, and Daniel was the bad guy in the Karate Kid. He came to town.
Yeah. I do like the way they played it now. They kind of mixed it, but yeah.
Look, so Zainthar Kai is a new temple that has been brought out through Broken Realms that really does reward you for the snakes. So, and we're going to talk about this for context of the list that Chuck's going to share with us, probably at 5 or 10 minutes or however long it takes for us to discuss this. And we'll put the theory into practice and see why he's taken the list that he's taken. But there's a couple of rules that you're going to get, and there's actually 3 battalions, which is really cool as well. You've got 3 new battalions to choose from. The first one, Chuck, I want to get your thoughts around. So you've got the Khane's Essence, which allows you to get +1 bravery characteristic for your Zainthar Kai Medusa, as well as the Kinari Heart Renders. Or Harpies. So that's your Life Takers and your, How does that come into play? Is that important, like getting +1 bravery?
It's important for one very reason. Not so much for the Harpies, mostly because if they get into combat, chances are they're going to die. They're not the most survivable things. But for the Medusa, because you're going to cast Mind Razor on them. And Mind Razor, you get a bonus if you have higher bravery. And they already have a bravery of 8, so making that a bravery 9 is fantastic. So not only will you do extra rend, you also do double damage.
So it obviously makes you harder to run from Battle Shock. And obviously, when you're running Witch Elves or Sisters of Slaughter, especially those big blocks, you're getting that additional bravery characteristic for every 10 models. Unlikely, some builds, but there's a lot of lists that are building around 5 or 10 snakes. So the minute you start taking bravery Battle Shock, you're losing that bravery buff. So at least at minimum, getting 1 extra on top of, as you mentioned, Mind Razor.
Yeah, it does help. I mean, being 2 wound models, it always does hurt whenever you have to have 1 run away that's fully, perfectly fine and unwounded. It's just like
Wait till you get a Mega Gargant. Sorry, not a Mega Gargant, a Man Crusher Gargant run. I had 1 run on 12 wounds. I cried. I literally in the fetal position and cried. You also get the Vault of the First Brute. So you get to choose an additional... so you can choose 1 additional hero in your army to have an artifact of power. That artifact must come from Battle Tome Daughters of Khaine. So you can't bring an additional artifact from the realms, but you can take an additional artifact for your heroes.
Right, so depending on what temple you choose, some temples have a specific item that you have to take, like Kraith, you have to take the Venom of Nagendra, but otherwise you get to kind of choose whatever you want. So most commonly, if you're taking a priest, you're going to take a Iron Circlet, so you can reroll your prayers. The Gifts of Morathi usually aren't the ones people are taking. I'm sorry, I'm flipping to the book right now, to that section, but Gifts of Morathi aren't usually where people are taking their artifacts for the armies, but I think it's 1001 Dark Blessings. I believe that's one on my list. Let me scroll down here.
We'll get to it. It's okay. We'll talk about the artifact on your list a bit.
1001 Dark Blessings, because I put that essentially gives you an extra little bit of, gives you 1 to your armor save, and that's in the Gifts of Morathi table. So I like that one specifically just to put that on my Medusa Iron Scale, who I want to live and get in combat, which we'll get into here in a little bit. So yeah, it's a free extra artifact. So if you're taking a battalion, 3 artifacts, sure, why not?
That's sweet. That's sweet. You're going to have 3 heroes. You're going to be an army that's like. Although if you do take Morathi, for example, she is a named character, so you're not going to be able to put an artifact on her. However, you probably are going to have a couple of small support heroes. Whether you take the Iron Scale, whether you take a Hag Queen, whether you take a Cauldron, usually you have a couple of heroes.
And really, too, don't forget secondaries are a thing now. One of the secondaries is choose a hero with an artifact. So if you have an extra artifact on a hero that you can keep hidden, like, you're going to score secondaries pretty easily.
Especially with some of the scenarios that are giving you bonus VP for having a hero within 6. So it does reward you for having multiple small heroes. You've gotten this command ability, so Power of the Blood. So you use the command ability once per phase. When you pick a friendly, the Medusa unit or your Harpy unit, that's wholly within 12 of that hero. If you do so, add 1 to the attack's characteristic of melee weapons to the unit until the end of the phase. Okay.
I mean, how would you like to have the Blood Sisters with 5 attacks each? Because if you keep them next to the Shadow Queen and get this off on that, you are putting out a hurt. And you're still rolling handfuls of dice with 5 to 10 snakes. Like, holy cow.
And what's the attack characteristic? Like 5 attacks each.
No,
so if you're running a unit of 5 with 25 attacks.
Yeah, now it's 3 base. So the +2 is from this ability and being near Shadow Queen. So it's 3s and 3s, -1 for 1 damage. Now keep in mind, you're also probably going to have Mind Razor on them. So 5 attacks each, 3s and 3s, -2 damage, because you're probably going to be higher bravery than most things out there. Not demons per se, but you're going to do pretty well.
So a whole bunch of attacks, a whole bunch of additional bonuses, especially bravery, like anything under brave. And there's a lot of stuff that is going to be bravery 10. Then there's also a lot of stuff, probably bravery 7 and less. So I guess that +1 to the bravery characteristic from the Khane's essence is going to really help here.
Yeah, and like I said, let's just go full thought process here. They have the Witch Brew, the Sippy Cup as it's more commonly known. So they're re-rolling all their wound rolls. All right, it's turn 3. You're re-rolling 1s to hit. You are killing whatever you're touching.
With potentially 25 attacks if you're taking a unit of 5.
Right, and they are 2-inch reach. So taking a unit of 10, you could still get all your attacks in if you just position, slightly decent.
And hey, if Morathi's on the table, there's a good chance that people are not focusing on your snakes. They're focusing on Morathi. Morathi is that big, what they call distraction kind of effects, where people want to take down Morathi as quick as possible because she's tying you up, she's doing damage. But her rules have changed as well. You now don't have to sacrifice one of the models. It's not like I take the small Morathi or the big Morathi. I now get both on the table. She's a little bit more expensive, but I get to play with both of my toys, which I think was an awesome change to the rules.
She is worth every single point. And every style of army I've played her with, she is just so fantastic because I know we're getting a Marathi tangent here, but the Shadow Queen is great, and you run her forward. She will hold up she'll hold up an army if you really want to. She will buff up your Medusa as they're running nearby as well, and then your Marathi Kane, the smaller one, is going to buff everything else and stay in the back line and do work. And so no matter what you're running, Witch Elves, Sister Slaughter, Medusa, Canary, if you bring Marathi Kane, she's helping them all.
It's hard not to take Marathi Kane, and we'll talk about it if it is in your list. But you've also got the command trait, which is the general gets his command trait instead of 1 from Daughters of Khaine, which is the Curse of the Bloodied Hand. So at the end of the combat phase, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches of the general. On a 5+, they suffer D3 mortal wounds. So is that meaning that we're not going to take Morathi as our general? And we want to kind of take advantage of this trait, or is Morathi still a good choice as a general?
I probably won't take Morathi as my general. I never did before. I probably still won't, because now she counts as being your general, even if she's not your general. So there's no reason to make her your general. And really, if you're taking this specific Xanthar Kai, you're going to be running Medusa, so which means your general is probably a Bloodwrack Medusa, hopefully on a shrine if you can fit it. Sometimes you can't, but unless you're playing maybe Calibron, it's going to be probably the least important piece, so feel free to throw it into combat. I mean, sure, it's a 5-up, it's D3 mortal wounds, but if you can get into like a hero, you might be able to take off like a small little foot hero. It's a 5-up bonus. It's probably the least important part of this whole temple, but free rolls. Why not? Roll a dice.
On a large base like the Cauldron of Blood, or that chariot, where however you want to build it, that's a big base. That's a big 3 inches that you could be doing mortal wounds on a 5+. So that's nothing to sneeze at. And it may change or maybe you still want to take the Iron Scale as a general.
Well, the Iron Scale does not unlock the Blood Sisters. So you're going to be taking the Bloodwrack, you're going to be taking the Bloodwrack Medusa, not the Medusa Iron Scale as your general.
Way to ruin Christmas. We weren't going to. I was going to let you reveal the list tech. And the last thing you probably... No, it's all right. It's all right. This is giving back to the people. The last thing that we want to talk about before we get into the list is you get 3 battalions. Now, there's some pretty cool battalions. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on all 3? So one of them is going to allow you to use a command ability without spending a command point, which could be potentially useful. You do have one that it makes you ignore battle shock, so you don't have to take battle shock for anything in the battalion. And then the other one allows you to do some healing. In the hero phase, you can sacrifice, you can do something. In your hero phase, you can pick you can pick any number of units from this battalion that are within 6 inches of the Bloodrack Shrine from the same battalion. So this battalion, by the way, is forcing you to take 2 Bloodrack Shrines. One model from each unit you pick is slain, so it's just straight up we're killing something, which is likely to be either a harpy, a blood sister, or a blood stalker. And then you can heal 1 wound allocated to the Bloodrack Shrine for each Khaine Heartrender model that's slain, or 2 models. So basically, you're transferring the wound characteristic to the shrine, or you're healing that many wounds. So you got 3 battalions to choose from. From your perspective, are they all good? Are there ones that maybe are situational, or are there ones that maybe you just skip over because some are better than others?
So I want to talk about Shrine Brood first.
Sure.
It is the one that is probably the most fun narrative-wise and the least effective in a true competitive style game. I could see maybe like a late game if you have one of those scenarios where heroes need to survive on an objective and you want to feed that hero to keep it alive as it's being beaten. I could see maybe like that kind of one-off situation. That's so one-off, and really I don't want to kill my models. Like, I want to make you earn it. So I love the narrative behind it, but it's probably the one that I'm not going to take unless it's just for, a fun game just to try it out. And probably most people don't have 2 Bloodrack Shrines. I'm crazy, I can do that. Most people might have 1. So
I was going to say, having to take 2 Bloodrack Shrines, I'd like it to be 1 to 2. I think forcing me to take 2 means that I'm not spending points on my snakes. The Khaine, for me, one of the challenges with Khaine right now, and I started building my list with Khaine, that now with this new Warcry Warband, I'm kind of going down that route instead of Khaine. I don't know. Like, is that how you're looking at things right now, or are you seeing different values?
Khaine are very interesting. They are typically more valuable off the table for you because they don't have to come in until turn 5. So the threat of them going anywhere is usually more effective than when they actually drop in and do some wounds. I still love them. Like, they're cheap, so take them. They're not saying don't take them. That it's just your opponent having to second guess, knowing that your turn 5 you can bring them in. It is much bigger of an impact. It's mentally to them as opposed to when you actually bring them in. So, and like I said, I do like the Shadow Stalkers. The other problem is Shadow Stalkers take an extra turn to set up because you have to move them, you have to get closer, then you can shoot. So it's, I mean, if you're playing for a double turn, yeah, if you can get that double turn with them and move in position, like, it's going to be fantastic. There's room for both. Not to mention the Shadow Stalkers can constantly move. So if you just want to use the Shadow Stalkers as just movement tools, you can go every turn wherever you want, which is much better than just dropping down once and that's where they are. But Khaine do have high movement, so it's.
And I'm thinking about how I can use that in Calibron with some Khaine off the board, with some Shadow Stalkers on the table, and just manipulating the board. But within, and obviously, you can play around with your new toys. But I do like the ability. Like, would you take 2 Khaine Harpy units? Like, is because I always find, like, Shadow Warriors and things like that, usually 1 is enough. Do you think 2 Harpy units are overkill?
Typically, if I'm going to take some Khaine, I'm going to most likely be taking like a Cauldron Guard where I have to take 2. So I'll take 2 units of 5 of them. Like I said, just the threat of them being able to go anywhere is fantastic. I have taken, I did a crazy list once and took 2 units of 15. That's just a nightmare to play with and transport. So don't do that.
You're a wild man. Jeez.
It's like I said, it was just like, this is mine now. I'm over here and you left. But then again, if you look at that, like, it's huge blob. It's still only 15 wounds on, not a great save, but I don't know. I like 2 units of harpies, whether it's the shooty or the melee types.
So I guess what I'm hearing is that Shrine Brood, you've got to spend more points on the Bloodrack Shrine, so that's less points going to your snakes, and then to activate the rule abilities, you're often probably sacrificing your snakes or you're sacrificing your harpies, which is a big. I don't know if the Bloodrack Shrines are worth that much on the table. I'd rather get an Emerald Life Swarm if I really need to heal for 50 points.
Yeah, here's how you win with Shrine Brood. You get 2 Bloodrack Shrines, you get two Blood Stalkers or Blood Sisters and 2 Khanari units. And you theme one shrine with snakes on it instead of like the standard witch elves on the stairs. You theme the other one with Khanari on it, and then even theme up like a Khanari heroes as opposed to the Blood Rack, and you have them as just like they're just battling up the board. So you're having a little competition against yourself. The game doesn't matter. It's who's gonna survive the longest. So if you want to have like this internal aim, go very thematic with the way you build up the army, that's how you win with this list.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll move along from Shrine Brood. I think what I'm hearing is you're pushing shit uphill unless you're a narrative player. And hey, look, if you've got some secret list tech and you think I'm completely wrong, put it in the comment section. Tell me how wrong we really are. But for me personally, I think the other 2 are probably a little bit more attractive from a list building as well, also from a competitive sense. But hey, you do you. You've got this. Yep. So are the other 2 good?
Yeah. I really like Viperic Guard just because it has Morathi and the Shadow Queen in it. A battalion with my named big hero that I can just plop down is fantastic. Not to mention the once per battle, I just don't have to use a CP, is wonderful. In the game I had last night, as of this recording too, it came in very handy. Be able to top of 1 and just do some damage. We'll get into that when we talk about the list, but actually 1 to 2 Bloodrack Medusa or Medusa Iron Scale, so I took 1 of each in this because both of them have effect. The Medusa, so I could have my Blood Sisters become a battle line, so I had to take her and make her a general, and I wanted the Medusa Iron Scale for her ability that she can help buff the Medusa with. So 1 of each was good, and then I took 3 units of Blood Sisters personally just because then it's my battle line. So I have my amazing hero, 600 point models hero. I have my general, I have a buff hero, and I have my battle line done. And I get it's a decent amount of points, but I mean, this is going to be a 2 to 3 drop army for you.
I was going to say Vampiric Guard and Scathe Coven both seem to be one that you can really get your drops down. Probably not 1 drop. I think Scathe Coven probably you could maybe go 1 drop if you really wanted to go down that route. But I feel like this could be at least under 4, depending on how you build the list. You could probably go 2 or 3 drop, maybe 4 drop. Maybe the Vampiric Guard, Vampiric. I'm thinking about vampires. I didn't get smashed. This is an easy low drop battalion, both of them, which is really cool. I think the chat's talking about they want us to talk about Morathi. I think Morathi is becoming a bit of an auto include, and it'll probably be no surprise that Chuck probably has Morathi in his list. And I think the fact that you can include this named character in the battalion, and there's not a lot of battalions where I can put in Archeon, Nagash, Alariel. There's not many of those around, if any, actually, if I think about it. So the fact that I can bring in my supercaster Shadow Queen, I've got my combat beat stick Morathi, as well as getting the Medusa, the Iron Scale, the Blood Sisters, the Blood Stalkers, really forms the core of my army, and then it's just seasoning to taste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, looking at the narrative for it, so the Vampiric Guard is Morathi's personal honor guard. So, yeah, they're going to be around Morathi at all times, given what's going on. So, and Scathe Coven, I have yet to actually run yet. They'll be in my next list I try to give it a go. I'm not sure how effective the Battle Shock test is going to be, because if you're taking a big unit, you're probably going to bring a Hag Queen to give them the Witch Brew, so they'll have it anyway. So I don't know if that ability is going to. It's not. It doesn't hurt. I mean,
I guess you're saving your CP. You're saving your CP potentially for other rerolls.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, Scathe Coven, it works. You can build a nice list out of that for sure and keep drops low. So both of these, pick your poison. If you aren't running Marathi, obviously you'll take Scathe Coven. If you are running Marathi, you'll probably take Vampiric Guard. So
yeah, no, that's good. That's really good. That's really good. I think there is some, and obviously we're talking very early on, so who knows what this will look like in the end. But I think those two battalions for me probably stand out a lot more than our double shrine. Unless you bought two start collecting boxes and you just want a reason to bring out those shrines.
I mean,
you do you. But the first list that we've got here, and is Marathi? Oh, Marathi's there. Surprise. Surprise. So I'm just timestamping this. I should be a YouTuber. So we've got the first list, and I did mention that normally we do two lists on this show, but we're going to do two different shows here. One really focusing on the snakes, the other one really focusing on witch elves. This is the snake episode. And the way we're going to kind of bring these rules together is through Chuck's list. And Chuck, this is not just Math Hammer. This is actual real experience that you've had on the table. I know you've been playing a lot of games. I know you've been practicing and playing with different builds as well. Mm-hmm. Maybe just a general overview. How have you found your games with your Cobra Kai?
It's really interesting. The snakes, like I said, they seem to be very much more late game oriented, which is not the play style I've been used to with playing, like essentially Witch Elf spam list, which is more Alpha Strike it in and go from there. So it feels like I'm losing for the first two turns, and then it shifts. But I've had some games where I've gotten double turns. Actually, the game I had last night with this almost exact list, I didn't get a single double turn. It was perfectly alternating as the way the dice worked out. And like I said, first two turns, I'm just like, oh boy. And it was against Beast of Chaos and a local player, and he's really good with it. That's his army. But yeah, near the late game though, all of a sudden his models are gone and not coming back. And, I don't have many left either, but my one Medusa with a few buffs on her is more powerful than even like 10 gore that he's going to summon back. So it's very much a late game mentality for the way the snakes seem to want to play from my experience.
Which is certainly the opposite of what the witch elves are. They are get in early and just try to... They're kind of like Gargans. They just get in and try to survive as long as possible and tie your opponent away from the objectives as long as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this list overall, I definitely kind of built it as just kind of like, if I was getting into this army right now, what's my easiest entry to build a list that would use these new rules? So that's kind of what I came up with. You could easily tweak this in different ways for sure. But like this is the easiest entry in from what I saw using the Shadow and Pain, Broken Realms, and probably start collecting box.
So let's talk about your list, and some people are very keen in the chat as well to understand, is Marathi an auto include, or can this list be competitive outside of Marathi? But before you give us your thoughts on that, I'll read out the list. So you've got the Medusa Iron Scale coming out with the artifact 1001 Dark Blessings. We do have Marathi Kane and the Shadow Queen. So they have to be taken in combination. You can't just choose one or the other. So you're essentially spending 600 points for this particular hero, despite it being two separate units. You do have the Bloodwrack Medusa, who is the general. The command trait is coming in with the Curse of the Bloodied Hand, the Artifact of Crown of Woe, and the Lure of Shadows with the Shroud of Despair. You then come in with 5 Blood Sisters, 5 Blood Sisters, 5 Blood Sisters, 5 Bloodstalkers, 5 Bloodstalkers, 5 Bloodstalkers. You've got the Vampiric... Can you just get it out of me? What is it?
Vampiric Guard.
Vipiric. I keep going Vampiric. It's bloody Warhammer Weekly talking about vampires, I swear.
Yep, it's stuck in our heads.
Vampires. You've also got the Balwin Vortex, and Chuck, your list is so good that you're coming in at 1,900 points. You're giving away literally 100 points for free for triumphs. You just want to guarantee that triumph. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I always like to play down, so that way whenever I make it's like the Harlem Globetrotters. You lose the first half, so when you win in the second half, it's that much bigger. Shadow Stalkers, while aren't on War Scroll Builder or Azir at time of this recording, their points are available if you download the PDF off the GW website, which is 100 points. So I had a unit of 9 Shadow Stalkers in this list.
Yeah, the chat's freaking out right now, going, where are the Shadow Stalkers? Where are the Shadow Stalkers? Those 100 points are just too good not to take. I think for me, when I saw them, I was surprised that they were 100. I would pay 140 for them, maybe even 160. I think they're quite good, although the shooting attack is a bit challenging just with the teleporting versus the range. But yeah, so let's get into the list and let's talk a little bit about, maybe we'll start with your heroes, whether you want to take us through maybe why you chose them, or maybe the combination, or how this all works. So where do you want to start, Chuck?
Yeah, actually, real quick caveat. The list I did try, I actually put the Blood Stalkers as a unit of 15 when I ran this last night, not the 3 units of 5, because that then dropped this list to a 3-drop list, which was very nice to choose to go second. But yeah, so obviously Morathi-Khaine, I'm going to take her in here because the Shadow Queen, her presence, one, she can hold up an entire army if you position her right, and two, she's going to buff up all the Medusa in combat, which is just, I mean, fantastic. Even the Blood Stalkers, the melee ones, if you're just getting extra dice to roll attacks for, they still can put out a hurt. Like, something charges into them, and oh, this is your archer unit, I'm going to throw into. It's like, yeah, I still have 2 wounds and I'm still doing a lot of attacks back at you thanks to the Shadow Queen just being there. So, and then Mind Razor, obviously, just to give the extra rend, get the extra damage, because the Bloodwrack Medusa, which is my general, to also unlock the Blood Sisters as my battle line, has the Crown of Woe and Shroud of Despair, which are both to help drop the bravery of my opponent. So guaranteeing I will always get full Mind Razor buffs. Because if you're gonna spend the time to cast Mind Razor and put on Morathi, who's obviously the most powerful caster, you want to make sure you get full ability off of it. So if your opponent has less bravery, you're getting +1 also because you're Xanthar Kai. Like, it's very easy to get that buff going.
Marathi-Khaine, by the way, is the small little Morathi. So we got little small Morathi, and then the Shadow Queen is big Morathi. When I look at both these war scrolls, it's just sexy. It's just hotness where you get the -1 to hit -1 to, or subtract 1 from the hit rolls that target little Morathi. You get 3 casts, 2 unbind. You get +1 to your casting, dispelling, and unbind rolls. That Black Horror of Ulgu, that her spell, her signature spell, 36-inch range. I think that is crazy cool for character sniping, or just getting something at complete long range. The command ability is great, and I think that's probably one thing we've really missed out on, is that Morathi, when we had old Morathi, we were so quick to create the big Morathi that we never really got to take advantage of small Morathi. We just wanted big Morathi, and we haven't lost that damage prevention stuff that we used to have. There was, you could only take 3 damage per battle round, but they also removed the broken little part where she could take unlimited damage in between rounds. So people used to just try to go at her with endless spells, the predatory endless spells, in between turns because of a technicality, but that's no longer available. So I like that they've cleaned it up.
Right, I am too. I will say this. I will go against the fact that everyone always turned her big. I had it based upon how I built my list, is if I was a hyper aggressive, yes, I'd absolutely turn her right away and throw her in. But there is more than a few games where I kept her small at least through turn 4, just for the magic and that. She was very useful in that case, and then still she was never the general, unfortunately. Like, I'd just give it to my Slaughter Queen. But yeah, now that you get both, like I said, it's best of both worlds. And as you said, it's just all sexy. every single part of it.
It's great. Yeah. Like, it's probably worth calling out as well when we go to the actual Shadow Queen, so big Morathi. I thought one big change that, again, I'm really happy with. I hate little tricks that break unit coherency. It's one that I don't use with my Mega Gargants. I hate a real feel bad moment. And the Gaze of Morathi, where you used to be able to do an 8-inch attack and break coherency, and then like, bye-bye, see you later, half of a unit. That's been changed. So Gaze of Morathi does more consistent damage, but you don't have that weird, and it's longer range as well, but you don't have the weird breaking of coherency rule.
I love it to what it is now. Just 18-inch range, one attack, 2's the hit, 2's the wound, -3 d6 damage. Like, yes. Because now I can stare down a hero and take that hero off. Yeah, and like I said, you're not playing that gamey thing where it's like, oh, I'm breaking your coherency, but the kind of I think that's kind of like moving out of the game from rules that have been changing over time, which I'm glad for that. Like, I'd rather just do damage. Like, we don't need to, I guess, play that little game as often, because especially if you're playing lots of units now, that coherency is not as big of a deal. Like, you have so many models. That kind of what the game is right now. Your blocks of 30 and all that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And like, just looking over Morathi, she does some good damage. She's very consistent damage, whether you've got some high Ren, some Ren 2 damage, high Ren 2 attacks that, lead into 3 damage or 6 damage. You've got some stuff where you've got some, the D6 shooting. I mentioned the Gaze of Morathi. She still can only suffer 3 wounds in a turn as well. So we've kept some of that goodness. She still can't be healed though. So there's no way of bringing her wounds characteristic back. But really, even if you're in combat turn 1, or you should be able to keep her around at 12 wounds till turn 4. So you should have Morathi around for most of the game.
Well, player turn, so she can take 3 in each player turn. So if you charge her top of 1, she'll take 3, and then in her opponent's. Now, even still, like, having her for 2 turns, I've gotten my value out of being hyper aggressive. If you hold her back for 1 turn, or your opponent just says, oh, it's Morathi, I'm not going to deal with it, it's an experience, and says, I'm not going to deal with it, not going to throw the wounds onto it, you just smile with glee because Morathi's staying around for an extra turn. So, yeah, like, even just 2 turns is enough for the points for what she can do to get you ahead.
And sometimes people actually, like, one of the things that people will do with Nagash is I'll see Nagash and go, well, I'm just going to ignore Nagash. I'm going to put everything else into the other parts of the army. And I think Morathi can also play down that way. People go, well, I'm going to target your stalkers, your witch elves, however you want to build your army. And then you got Morathi running around, till she does whatever she wants, which is crazy. When she flies, she has very high movement, base of 14, just shooting and attacking and tying people up. So,
and there is a weakness you have to be aware of as a player, and also if you're playing against Morathi. So, essentially Morathi has 12 wounds on the Shadow Queen. So if the Shadow Queen's in combat and she takes a wound, she'll get her armor save, and she'll get the Fanatical Faith save, and then she'll take the wounds till 3, and then she stops. Morathi-Khaine, the smaller one, she gets her armor save, and if she fails that armor save, it immediately goes to the Shadow Queen, and she does not get to do that Fanatical Faith save. So you want to make sure you kind of keep Marathi-Khaine out of combat, out of harm's way. Or if you're playing against it, you want to try and put the wounds through on Marathi-Khaine because it's much more easy to guarantee those 3 wounds. So, it still stops at 3, but just as a heads up.
Protect your little Morathi. And then, she's casting spells. She's got that 36-inch range magic as well. So as long as you'll be able to Mind Razor and buff your units and stay out of harm's way, it shouldn't be too hard unless someone like Deep Strikes or is able to, has some really long range threats, really do protect Morathi-Khaine.
Right. And with the list I had, I took Morathi-Khaine. I put her on the Balewind Vortex. So she got an extra armor. So she went to a 3-up. She has an extra spell then. So cast Mystic Shield on her. So she's a 3-up rerolling ones. It helps make her a little bit more survivable. And then, just surround her base. So, and then obviously the extra 6 inches. So yeah, she's doing her spell wherever she wants at that point.
Yeah, I know some people really like taking the chronomatic cogs because you can slow down time and re-roll your armor saves. So you could always like tweak it turn 1, get that +2 movement to get into combat in a little bit easier, and then slow down time and re-roll the save. So I think there's a lot of cool ways, as you mentioned, Balewind, if you've got one. Good luck trying to buy a Balewind right now. I've only been out of stock for like 12 months, and Seraphon players have been on eBay trying to get them for a fair while. But, I think Morathi-Khaine and the Shadow Queen, very, very, very strong. I think you'll see a lot of them on the table. Is it an auto-clue? No, not necessarily. Is it a good choice? Absolutely. Can you be competitive without Morathi-Khaine? I think so. Chuck, would you agree or disagree that you need Morathi-Khaine?
No, I don't think you need her. I think she's a nice, powerful buff piece for sure. Based on you can put Morathi-Khaine and the Shadow Queen in any army that's Daughters of Khaine, and instantly it'll have a compounding effect. Doesn't mean she's needed. You can still go without her. I mean, I wouldn't mind having more snakes in my list, having these unit of Blood Sisters up to 10. Like that would have been fantastic, having extra hero. Because the other thing too, one weakness I guess of my list is I'm losing an artifact because I don't have an extra hero that can take one. Because I should be able to have 3, but I only have 2 because I just don't have an extra hero with the name because I want to take Shadow Stalkers instead.
Talk to me about the Medusa. Is there anything else, by the way, you want to talk about Morathi? I think, when I look at her, when I look at the combination, the two, they're just straight up a great utility piece. You've got magic, you've got combat, you've got some buffing abilities, it's got a nice little combination here of things you could do. And I think getting her back out on the table, I think people are really excited about.
Yeah, what I can say is if you're thinking about starting Daughters of Khaine, plan to pick her up at some point because you will not regret it. She will work with whatever you want to do. She's beautiful to paint. She's an amazing model. I love everything about her, though. I'm going to be very biased here. Yeah,
mine comes this weekend.
Nice. There's the one wing that's kind of like folded over. Leave that one off. Paint that separate. That's all you got to do. There you go.
Talk to me about the Medusa Iron Scale, because we'll get to the general, and the general is definitely rightfully so, but the Medusa Iron Scale is the new hero that comes through Shadow and Pain. If you didn't buy Shadow and Pain, I can only imagine it'll be released sometime in the future, or you can pick it up on a buy and sell, I'm sure. But what does she do? What does the Medusa Iron Scale do? What's she bringing to the table? Why have you included her into your list?
I mean, she has a nice set of abilities. So she has an 18-inch range attack, and then she also has a melee attack. They're nothing really to write home about, but I mean, 2-inch reach on the melee attack means she can kind of hide back and poke some things from behind units. The range attack is 18 inches. It's not, that's a very nice range for essentially a staff that's just, I guess, shooting magic missiles out of it. She does ignore spell effects and endless spell effects on her on a 5-up, and that's okay. But what really is important for her is her Gory Offering. So if an enemy model is slain by wounds inflicted by this model, attacks in the combat phase, you can add 1 to the attacks characteristics of friendly Medusa units wholly within 12 inches of this model. Downside of that, she has to attack first. And usually you don't want your big, powerful, buffed unit not attacking first. So you kind of have to be sneaky with her. That's I brought her in to try and do this. So one, she's on a 5-up save with 6 wounds. So that's why she has the 1,001 Dark Blessings. Makes it to a 4-up save, slightly a little bit, more survivability. So I would charge in, and really what I would try to do is kind of tag her on the end and go, okay, can my unit 5 Blood Sisters survive this attack? It is very much a weighing decision, yes or no. Or do I have multiple attacks like kind of within range? So if I had 2 units of Blood Sisters charged in and had her in there too, it's like, okay, well, which is the worst? Which one do I want to fight next to last? Because I'll attack with her first, pick off an easy target. All of a sudden, I get +1 attack to all my Medusa. Shadow Queen's nearby, another +1, and like I said, we're up to that 5 attacks. It is good to remember that she is also a Medusa, so if she's near the Shadow Queen, she'll also get that extra bonus attack. But so you want to get her to attack first, slay a unit, and then the rest of your Medusa are just going to pop off. Downside is she has to attack first, and you have to receive hits on at least one of those units.
And I guess the challenge as well is the command ability. It's very, very cool. The command ability allows you in the hero phase, if you do so, pick 1 friendly Medusa unit wholly within 12 of this model. Until your next hero phase, that unit can run and still shoot and or charge in the same turn. In addition, until your next hero phase, you can roll 2d6 instead of d6 when you make a run roll for that unit. So there is a likelihood that unit is over. Like it's just Forrest Gumping down the board, while your Iron Scale is just like slowly trying to catch up.
Yeah, like I said, with the snake list, I'm been a little bit more not as hyper aggressive with it. So I didn't actually really think about using this ability too much until late game, when I wanted them just to run and charge that small unit, might have 2 or 3 models into it to also capture an objective. I think Gory. I mean, I think that's where you can get the most use out of her. Is actually that command ability, but you really have to plan for that. My list, this one didn't really plan for it. I'd rather be alpha striking with a unit of 10 sisters, if I'm honest, because they'll go up there with Morathi, who can get there on her own and do the work. But unit 5 sisters probably won't survive as much, from what I found.
So that's certainly probably what I've seen is, and this is probably where I've seen the no Morathi come into play. So when you put that 600 points into a no Morathi snake build, and you do bring up these big blocks of 10 or 15 snakes, then using the Medusa or the Iron Scale to throw them up the board, super buffed up, doing what, 4 attacks, 3 attacks, depending on how you've, they've got base 3, but you can get them before. Without Morathi, you can't get them to 5. I'm just saying things. I'm waiting for Chuck to say actually.
No, yeah. I don't know if there's a way to get him 5. I think it'd just be at 4.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, but even 4 attacks with a block of 10 who are running and charging, buffed up with some re-rolls. Just
yeah, no, it's the one thing within the game I played. Like I said, the Unit 5 Blood Sisters started to seem more like screens than anything else, because I could do some hurt, but if I had more than one thing in combat and I chose them to be the expendable ones, some quality attacks will take out your Blood Sisters fairly easily. That 5-up armor, 6-up after save, while nice, doesn't last long if you have a bunch of dice to roll in these saves.
Yeah, I think the challenge with the Iron Scale is that she's only got a 5-up armor save. She has 6 wounds, so any rend is going to take her down super quickly. So bear that in mind.
Yeah, and like a lot of shooting can take her off. So like, I tried to use her for the Gory Offering ability. It was tough. I managed to pull it off, but the unit of Medusa that were nearby, there was only 2 left in the unit. So it's like, is it worth it? I don't know. I think her command ability to make run and charge, if you want to alpha strike, is probably going to be where you're going to see the power out of her going forward.
Yeah, that's where I've certainly seen probably people taking big blocks and just throwing them up the board. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about the Bloodwreck Medusa. So most people have got that Slaughter Queen. Most people have put on some type of witch elf style, hag queen on their shrine. But talk to me about the Medusa. Like, what does Medusa bring to the table? Obviously, 1 is the general. 2, why have we got this particular shrine as opposed to the other shrines? And then maybe the kit out that you've got with the Curse of the Bloodied Hand, the Crone of Woe, and the Shroud of Despair.
Well, keep in mind, this Bloodwreck Medusa is not on a shrine.
Oh,
so it'd be called the Bloodwreck Shrine.
Yes.
So the battalion...
I'm in between meetings, guys. I've jumped from a meeting. I'm going into a meeting. Bear with me. Sorry. Ignore me. It's not on it. Well, then let me ask you, why haven't you got it on a shrine? Why is there no shrine?
If you want to scroll back up to the battalion, you'll see it's not bolded on the keyword for the Vampiric Guard.
The Vampiric Guard.
Yeah, Scathe Coven it is. So if you go Scathe Coven, Bloodwreck Medusa is bolded, whereas Vampiric Guard it's not. So she has to be on foot for this one, from my understanding. So she's mostly there so I could have the Blood Sisters battle line, so I can run a full snake list. That was her main reason. The nice little backup is I could give her the Crown of Woe and Shroud of Despair, and since she's kind of expendable, since her key thing was to simply unlock my battle line, she's going to go up with them, and then she's going to be having that Crown of Woe to give a little bubble of negating bravery, casting the Shroud of Despair to continue doing that. So my Mind Razor was popping off regularly. So that for this specific list, that's what I took her in for. You can still take them in. They're not terrible models. Like they're decent heroes. I've in previous games in the past, I've thrown them in to other 5 wound foot heroes and taken them off. So like in the blood, and there's stare ability, which I don't have it in front of me, but it's nothing to sneeze at either. It can do some work. So it's not a terrible model for 140 points. And the fact that it's how you unlock the Blood Sisters, yeah, if you want to take snakes, you're taking a Bloodwreck Medusa. I would prefer to have it on a shrine, yes. So you just got to kind of decide how you want to do it, whether you go in the Vampiric Guard or not.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. So that's probably a really good call out. And by the way, we are recording this particular episode pre-FAQ, but also pre-winter FAQ. So who knows if there's going to be a points adjustment, a rules adjustment. I don't imagine too many rules. I don't think when I looked through the Broken Realms, there was anything that was really broken or needed a lot of clarity. I don't know if they're going to change any points. I think the points are probably fair as they currently stand, but we don't know. Maybe the shrines will go up, go down. And obviously, you know, like every list discussion on this channel, season to taste. If you don't like this particular battalion, if you want to make this a unit of 10 instead of 2 units of 5, if you want to have Emerald Life Swarm or whatever you want to do, obviously season for taste, but we are putting kind of some of this theory into practice and how we're using the Cobra Kai the new temple into a list design.
Yeah, so essentially, and like I said, with the Bloodstalkers, I had them in a unit of 15. So essentially what this list was throwing up the Shadow Queen right away, Marathi Kane popping onto the Balewind Vortex, 15 Bloodstalkers around her, using Marathi Kane's ability for the first time free, essentially, because of the Vampiric Guard ability. So all those 15 Bloodstalkers could all shoot. So hero phase, shooting off a couple other heroes, shooting off, you know, just plinking some wounds around. And then being able to essentially do that anytime I didn't need to save a unit with CP for Battle Shock if it got bad enough. Which it only ever happened once with my Shadow Stalkers. They got hit in the back line and there's only 2 left. I decided to just pop the CP and save them, which was really handy because then they could just teleport around and start capturing objectives on their own whenever they were abandoned by my opponent. So being able to just shoot 15 stalkers every hero phase, move and then shoot again, really puts a damper on your opponent's plans.
And both the Blood Sisters and the Blood Stalkers do mortal wounds on a roll of a 6. No. It's the Blood Stalkers that do mortal wounds on a 6 plus. So it has that been modified? Has that been changed? I don't have the Shadow and Pain War Scrolls in front of me. Has that been changed to be a flat 6?
Yeah. So if the unmodified hit roll of an attack made of a Heartstreaker bow is a 6, the attack inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target. Attack sequence ends, and they also have 2 shots each now instead of 1.
So you can't modify, guys. So the reason I call that out is the old book or the battle tome would say 6+, which means that any way you can get a +1 to hit or a +2, you'd actually bring that down. But that now has been updated from Shadow and Pain. So now it's just a flat 6 with the Heartseeker bows. That if you roll a 6, flat 6, which also means if you got a modification, so if there's anyone that's causing -1 to hit, that doesn't come into play. So you're doing mortals on a 6.
Yeah, and even if you want to fish for 6s, but like I said, and with the unit 15, I was rolling 30 dice. But even if I didn't, it's still 3s to hit, 3s to wound, and -1 rend, 1 damage. That's still going to eat through quite a bit. So nothing to sneeze at. And then Blood Sisters, their turn to crystal. Also now it's at the end of combat phase. You pick 1 enemy within 1 inch of this unit. Roll 1 dice for each model in this unit. For each 3+, it's a mortal wound. So it's no longer. They're much cleaner. These are much easier ways to handle these rules. So I'm very happy about the changes, especially the Bloodstalkers getting 2 attacks, because now Bloodstalkers, you look at them and go, yes, I would like to take some of these.
I think the interesting thing as well is both the Blood Sisters and the Bloodstalkers have that movement 8, so they're certainly quite fast. They've got that bravery. They've got a good bravery. They've got 2 wounds apiece. Battle Shock does hurt, obviously. Losing 2 wound models as opposed to a 1 wound Canary daughter. But 5+ armor save. That seems to me quite low. That hasn't changed on
no,
the update, right?
It's still 5+. It does hurt them. I mean, if they were 1 wound each, that would be absolutely terrible. But being 2 wounds each, you have a 5 up, 6 up, essentially. It's not the worst. Like I said, units of 5 for either Medusa, I'm starting to find kind of go away pretty quick. But the unit of 15 Bloodstalkers, they actually got charged late game by a couple units. But thankfully, I had the Shadow Queen still nearby because my opponent did ignore Morathi for too long. So they got an extra attack. So 3 attacks each, 3s and 4s, no rend, 1 damage. I was still putting out a pretty good hurt with my shooty snakes, essentially, in combat. And then I also had my Blood Rights table buff, so I was getting rerolls there. So, I think I like the snakes in units of 10 when and where you can do it. You could probably still get away with the Bloodstalkers being units of 5 spaced out. So, it kind of see what you feel, how you want to do it, whether you're trying to take advantage of Marathi's command ability to shoot in the hero phase, or if you want to go more combat heavy, you can also attack in the hero phase too that way. So.
Yeah, and that was probably why I wanted to call that out, is that, with an armor save of 5+, being 2 wounds apiece, it might be worth incorporating a larger block, having a unit of 10, you're having a unit of 15, but you do lose, board presence, you do lose a bunch of units, and you are kind of positioning your center of power in Morathi and the Blood Sisters. So, and if your Blood Sisters or your Blood Stalkers are in combination with Morathi, it does mean that, your opponent can be using the other parts of the table to win the battle, while you've got this big center of power with so many points tied in because you're trying to get the additional attack for being close to Morathi. And
even still, if you just take this list as it is, if you drop the 3 units of Stalkers and just make your 3 Blood Sisters units of 10, you're all combat, but the list still fits as is. And if you're going to do that, I'd say maybe drop the Shadow Stalkers and put in a Hag Queen to pass off the Witch Brew to a unit. It's not going to be bad at all. So, if you're looking for more combat heavy and you're like, I don't like the shooty snakes, or I just want to go combat, that's an easy switch for this list to make it worthwhile. So,
yeah, no, that's good. And we know the Viperic Guard, got it right, Viperic Guard, not Vampiric Guard, unless there's Vampire Daughters of Khaine coming soon, which, oh my gosh, how crazy would that be? Death snakes. No, the Viperic Guard. So we've obviously, that's going to capture a lot of this army, and we know that when we look at that up, that's going to once per battle in the hero can use their command ability without spending a command point, which is awesome. You've obviously got the increased bravery, so hopefully you won't have to use a lot of inspiring presence. We know that the Balewind Vortex is coming in to go on Little Morathi, so Little Morathi will use the Balewind Vortex, increase her range to be able to cast Mind Razor, I guess, as the army kind of moves up the board, as well as the +1 armor save.
Yeah, Mind Razor, it works on everything. So if when in doubt, you could just cast it on the Shadow Queen because you're throwing the Shadow Queen into combat. But if you can get it on units of snakes, it's fantastic. So yeah, it's not her only spell. She can cast more than that. Her spell on her War Skull is fantastic. Yeah. Not to mention, like, there's the Realm spells too. So I played in the Realm of Fire, so being able to just essentially throw some fireballs around, pretty good.
Arcane Bolt, a Mystic Shield. If you're playing in the Realms, obviously the Realm spells, there are some quite good Realm spells as well. So being a triple caster, I think, is really cool. But getting the +1 to Dispelling and Unbinding can be quite powerful too. So, hey, getting her on a Balewind extends to that Black Horror of Ulgu to 42 inches.
Yep.
So that's a very big board presence. The other unit that we don't have listed here, just because War Scroll Builder isn't updated, is the new Khainite Shadow Stalkers that have come out of Warcry, now have points. As of recording, they are 9 for 100 points. The leader does have a couple of extra wounds, so I think it works out to be, 11 wounds in the unit?
Yeah, three wounds on the hero. Yep. Or champion, sorry.
And you can take this unit. So this comes in a unit of 9. You can go up to a unit of 18. So you can get double. You can't go any more than 18. So talk to me about why you would go the Shadow Stalkers. So by the way, the 100 points that are spare here, folks, then, this obviously to go into the Khainite Shadow Stalkers. Talk to me about why you've gone those guys instead, or this unit instead of, I guess, the Canary. What do they bring to the table? When I look at this, I think I saw an interesting Twitter conversation where people were talking about, I guess, the pros and cons of the Shadow Stalkers. And one of the big things that I think people kind of maybe over-focused on was that the missile weapon, the cursed missiles, have only a range of 6, while when they do their little teleport, they've got to be, like most teleports, outside of 9. So if you teleport, you can't shoot. You're out of range. So I think some people went, oh, that's not very good. But why have you found 100 points to bring into your list, and what are they bringing to the table?
Well, if I could be fully honest, I'd rather take them in a unit of 18. Maybe not in this list. Obviously, the points were kind of at a premium with Morathi-Khaine in there, but I love him at a unit of 18. Probably just going to leave him back, hiding away, either screening out back line if my opponent has some table edge shenanigans. Try and keep him out of harm's way, because turn 3, you get the reroll ones to hit. So you teleport them over turn 2, you go into turn 3, you're now within range of shooting because you moved them up. So you get the reroll ones to hit as you're trying to fish for those 6s for their shooting. So really, that's how I like to use it. I still use them in the same fashion, just only with the unit of 10. Like I said, they got caught in combat, got 7 of them wiped out pretty quickly. Thankfully, had a hero close enough that I was able to keep them around with a little CP battle shock community. And then still, even 2 was useful because my opponent left an objective. I just teleported over and grabbed it. So being able to just teleport is just fantastic. Anywhere at any time, essentially.
Yeah, I think for me, that was where I would always find 100 points for these Shadow Stalkers. So the rule we're talking about here is Shadow Leap. So in the movement phase, instead of making a normal move with the unit, you can use Shadow Leap. If you do so, remove the unit from the battlefield and set it up anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches from an enemy. So you can use this more than once. So you can use this in turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5. And you can keep jumping around, stealing objectives, positioning, blocking. You know, movement is king, as Joe in the chat's talking about. I couldn't agree more. So having that flexibility, because once the Canary are kind of on the table, they've just got to retreat, they've got to run away. The ability to be able to move around the board is pretty crazy. And the harness shadow, where you subtract 1 to the hit rolls made by melee weapons that target the unit as well, make them a little bit more durable as well. So, and they do some mortal wounds, with the cursed missile. So if they do hit with an unmodified 6, they're doing mortals. So while it is only 6 inches, and the attack profile is not that great. It's 1 attack, hits on 4s, wounds on 3s, no rend for 1 damage. It could just be enough chip before they get in with their assassin blades and their umbral blades.
Yeah, and if you can catch like a small foot hero in the back line off guard, you can take him out. There's no doubt about that. There's enough power there to take that out. Like I said, if you have them in units 10, you want to use them for movement shenanigans most of all. I like to take them in a unit 18 because that way I can get closer, get some nice shooting in, and even get stuck in, and maybe to even take out like a backline objective holding unit, not just a hero or just claiming something that was walked off of.
They could be something that sits on your own back, and unlike the Canary, you do set them up on the table. For me, when I think about this unit, I could set them up as a back objective holder initially, and then either I go aggressive with them early and try to take points early, or they could just be sitting there, and then once the kind of battle is in my favor, or maybe my opponent's moved off an objective, turn 3, turn 4, I could then use that Shadow Leap to then kind of, as the attritions kind of come in and there's less bodies on the board, I have more space to move around. I can pick that unit up and secure a back objective for some of those ones where you get more points for a home objective, or you get a combination of the 2 ones on the side. You get some bonus points. The utility for this, and I think this is a late game unit. When I look at this, I'm thinking about this as holding it out back and maybe turn 3, likely turn 4, possibly turn 5 if the game goes that long. That's right for a small unit.
There was one use I can see for them being an early game player more than much else. But it kind of reverts. You still revert the role back to being more end game. But if you put them up front early and let your opponent position, and that's the juicy target for them to try and charge. So they're going to try and get position, but it's a long charge, 12, 11, 10 even. You're kind of taking a gamble, but I'm a Kraith player, so I like gambles. So if they get it, okay, you at least you're -1 to hit. Let's see what happens. If they miss it, well, all of a sudden they've positioned to go after this unit that is now just gone, and all of a sudden your block of witch elves, your block of snakes are now up right through where that unit was, and going to countercharge you instead, and probably take off whatever you were going after the Shadow Stalkers with. So you could use them as early bait and move them away, and just keep them in the back line for the late game play still. But like I said, it's more of a risk as opposed to you can just keep them in the back line and keep them safe and just use them late game purely. It's 100 points, so it's really just where your head's at with the game and maybe your opponent and matchups.
I like the ability as well. You know, one consideration for taking a unit of 18 is being able to, you know, again, shadow leap, but being able to take around the board and make it really hard for an opponent to charge and get into me, you know, especially with someone who's got a flyer, whether it's, you know, let's say a terror guy, some more crusher, some type of flying, maybe Beast Claw Raider Stonehorns don't have Griffeather Charm anymore, but I can use that ability to kind of block off and screen parts of the board and make it really hard with those big bases to deny them getting to where they want to be, which would be the, you know, the Blood Stalkers, the Blood Sisters, who don't have a really good armor save and they don't want to take the hit, especially some of them doing mortal wounds on the hit. So that can be a nice little objective, kind of just claiming objectives, going for objectives, but also denying parts of the board. And even 200 points for a unit of 18 is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you could even use them for going and just protecting a hero, or throwing Morathi or the Shadow Queen up very far in front, and then teleport them right in front of her base. So it's in juicy charge range. So they're going to charge this small unit. They have to attack, but Morathi is still within range of all of her attacks to just reach over them and do tons of damage. So, you give your opponent pause. It's like, do I make this easy charge, take out this unit, and get stuck in combat with Morathi? Because I'm not going to be able to attack Morathi this turn, but she's still going to be able to attack this unit that charges in there. So there's lots of good plays with them. I can't wait to take this unit into shifting objectives and just make my opponent cry, because it's like, oh, where's the objective at? Okay, I'm over here now. All right, I'm over here.
I can't wait to take this unit against a Mega Gargant unit with a Kraken Eater who kicks the objective. And I go, lol, I'll teleport and I'll take it anyway. And you can keep kicking it. And I'm just going to keep, like a really good soccer goalie, I'm just going to keep blocking the objective every time you boot it. But I really like it. I bought them because of the lore. I'm going Calibron. I like the shadow kind of theme. So I kind of went in there before I saw the rules. But maybe the big question I've got before we kind of wrap this episode up, and as I did mention earlier on in the show, if you joined us late, that we will do a second episode that's purely focused more on the Witch Elf side. So how do these rules come into play when it comes to your Hagnar, your Calibron that I keep talking about, your Drakey Kenneth, your Kraith? Like, does this change, and does it make it Witch Elves not viable anymore? Does it mean, certain list building? So we'll go through that very soon on a future episode. It won't be that long, because I'm building a sisters army. So I need to get all the Sisters of Slaughter, and I need to get that wisdom from your head. But talk to me about this build. So you've obviously got Morathi, you've got the Medusa, you've got the Iron Scale, you've got your Blood Sisters, you've got your Blood Stalkers. How do you think this kind of list would go in a non-Cobra Kai list? Does it have legs in the other builds? Or do you think that Snake Temple is the only place to be taking snakes right now?
No, I mean, you could take snake list, maybe not this specific list, but like a snake list in Calibron would be fantastic.
Why would it be good in Calibron?
Just because then you have the small units and like the teleporting around, -1 to be shot. I just, that seemed to be the old snake home before Cobra Kai came out, and it still can be. Like I said, let's take Marathi-Khaine Shadow Queen, just set her aside, because we've said many times she can go into any list and just make it more powerful. She just eats up points to do so. I'll run anything in Kraith, but if you're going to take Kraith, you want to have as many attacks as possible. I can get more attacks at Witch Elves. Maybe want to take a snake list in Kraith. Drachy Kenneth definitely seems to play more with the Kanari and the Sisters of Slaughter because of their extra Paladin range, retreat charge. Hagnar, yeah, snakes and Hagnar would be fantastic because extra wounds, you want to keep these girls around longer. Yeah, so Calibron, Xanthar Kai, and Hagnar, I think, are all great places to do a snake army.
Yeah, Xanthar Kai, I really like this temple, especially if I was going... And maybe the other question I'll have for you, the other side, is how do you feel about maybe the Witch Elf Sisters of Slaughter kind of build in Cobra Kai? Now, I know the answer to this, but I want you to say it. How do you feel like if I was to bring my Sisters of Slaughter and my Witch Elves into a Cobra Kai, Do you think there's maybe a good balance between 50-50, like snakes and witch elves? Or do you think the incentives are just too strong to always focus on the snakes and the Medusa? Sorry, the Canary.
No, I honestly like, and you, like I said, you know my answer. Put witch elves everywhere. I love witch elves. They're my favorite models, units, everything. But I actually foresee as we expand out from this, no matter what temple you choose, even my Kraith, I'm probably going to bring a unit or two of Bloodstalkers, get some nice shooting attacks in. Even here, like, okay, maybe instead of taking so much, maybe I'll drop one of the Blood Sisters and a couple of Bloodstalkers, bring in a unit of 30 Witch Elves and a Hag Queen. I'm seeing that this is going to be a more balanced list of using more of the book than it used to be, as opposed to being all one or all the other. I still don't think Doomfire Warlocks are going to get as much love as they probably should. They still feel like a weird outcast. There is use for them, don't get me wrong. I have 10 of them, but I just don't ever really see much use for them. But I think your choice of temple will make you lean heavily towards something, whether it's snakes or Sisters of Slaughter or witch elves. But I think all temples can also have a mix to a certain extent and still be viable and powerful.
My thoughts, and this is only thoughts, I haven't played it out, so bear with me here, is I can see a world where I run a list very similar to Chuck's. I can run lots of snakes, whether it's Blood Sisters or Blood Stalkers, but I could see a world where I run, because one thing I think this army is struggling with or lacks is it doesn't have screens. So it's not going to handle a turn 1 alpha. It's not going to handle an Iron Jaws, Iron Sun hitting you in turn 1. It's not going to handle some type of like really quick army in your face. So I could see a world where potentially you do have 1 or 2 units of minimum size 10 of sisters with witch elves with shields, or some units of Sisters of Slaughter. Not going deep with them, but having a couple of screens who could be running around the backfields, who could be just harassing and being annoying, but also protecting those Blood Sisters and Blood Stalkers. So then as soon as I'm ready to unleash them, whether it's through the Iron Scale Medusa, whether it's just the Blood Rights table, I've had screens protecting them as they advance up the board. But that's my theory. It's not tested, but I could see a world where there's value there, and you don't have to go 100% snake.
I think if you were going to do screens in this list specifically, I would do Khaine.
Because of the battalion?
There, you could do it with the battalion with the Scathe Coven for sure. I'm just saying because they're cheaper than Witch Elves or Sisters of Slaughter. They still have the shield, so even though they're going to get attacked, they're going to do mortal wounds back. On a 6 to save, they'll do mortal wounds back in combat. So I would take them, and then you could drop down and screen anywhere you want at any given time.
Turn
so I think,
1. Like if you've got like an Iron Jaws, Iron Sun, for example, coming at you turn 1, they've got the drops on you.
If it's top of 1 and they're alpha charging you because you positioned up too high, I mean, you're in trouble. Like that just is what it is. But if it's you get to go first, you could drop them down wherever you need to go. So, like I said, I would use them more as screens, and then if they, because don't forget, like they can screen and move away. They can because
they've got the 4+. They can move. They can move
right
forward. They can move backwards. And we've already talked about the Shadow Stalkers as well. So they always can be a good screen as well as a utility piece.
Yeah, like I said, if I was to do screens in this list, because like in the game I played, I will say like the Blood Sisters started to become screens for my Blood Stalker unit, which was not exactly ideal. So
they're expensive. It's an expensive screen.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring that up because for someone who maybe has a traditional Witch Elf, Sisters of Slaughter type army, they're wondering, do I need to shelve this or and just go all snakes now or Canary? I think there is a build, but I think to your point as well, the Shadow Stalkers, the Canary, especially with some of the battalions who you can actually put them in and obviously reduce your drops, that could be an incentive to bring the Canary and the speed of the army compared to going Sisters of Slaughter or Witch Elves. So I think it's exciting. I think that, as you said earlier on in this episode, this is probably the most diverse Daughters of Khaine we have seen probably since the book released. I think initially when the book dropped,
like back in 2018, we did see some really nice mixed lists, but they've really gone deep in certain builds, and I like that we've unpacked and unlocked some cool builds.
Yeah, feel free to mix and match. Take a unit of 30 Witch Elves, take some 10 Blood Sisters, take Morathi. Like you're not gonna be found wanting, even if you mix it up a little bit like that. So,
as you said, even the Doomfire Warlocks have a place. Their spell is very good. It's just the rest of the things don't work as well. But that's another episode. Chuck,
yep.
Any final thoughts or any comments? As I mentioned, we are going to do a Witch Elf episode sooner rather than later. But if people want to know more about Chuck and they want to see that awesome, I'm going to bring it up one more time because it's just beautiful. If people want to see more about Chuck, he does have a blog, StrengthHammer. I have linked it below. His OnlyFans to see his beautiful Morathi cosplay is paywalled at $10 a day. No, if people want to learn more, Chuck, you've obviously got your blog, you've got a YouTube channel as well. Any shout outs, anything you wanted to kind of share with us before we kind of wrap up?
If you want to see my more day-to-day madness, you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram, StrengthHammer_. I also am very into lifting heavy weights, and Taylor Swift, as that was mentioned. So if you want to follow me anywhere and see Daughters of Khaine, weightlifting, and Taylor Swift stuff all day, please come give me a follow.
I would suggest maybe muting him for at least 48 hours because at this time of recording, Taylor Swift is about to drop a new album. So I imagine I'll have to mute you, Chuck, for at least 24 hours.
Just mute the word Taylor Swift and you'll be fine. It's going to be, it's Merry Swiftmas. Merry Swiftmas, everybody.
All right. Well, all I'm going to say is Brittany is best. She is superior. And I proved that on the tabletop against you, Chuck, so you can't disagree in my house when I've proved it right.
Rematch
Chuck,
is coming. 2022.
Rematch is coming. Adepticon money is being saved. But Chuck, absolute pleasure. Well, or CanCon. Let's do both. But we will have another episode very, very, very soon. And let's talk about different Witch Elf builds. Chuck, thank you very much. I know it's late. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out.
Okay, everybody.
Mate. How good was that video? Surely it's going to go straight to the pool room. If you enjoyed that video, I would appreciate it if you crush that like button, and if you have an opinion, leave it in the comments section. That lets YouTube know it's a great video and it should share it with other Age of Sigmar players. Cheers to all the bloody legends here on the screen who have financially supported AOS Coach on Patreon on YouTube members. Their contributions have helped me improve the quality, frequency, and the variety of content on this channel. So cheers, guys, you are bloody legends. Until the next video, don't forget to shoot the heroes and have a good one.